Now, when she said they don't speak very good English, some of them, are we talking about call centre activity on behalf of MBNA?
Yeah, we're talking about a call centre, I think, in India, in MBNA's case. So
they've no empathy at all with the economic situation. Those people are simply doing a job.
Oh, absolutely. They're doing a job, and the number flashes up on the screen in front of them on their computer, and they start talking to the person. They have a habit of calling people up to 5 times a day. So, if you're being, hounded like that by MBNA, you will end up agreeing almost to anything. And then they'll phone you then a few days later and say, hold on a second, you agreed to pay us, and you didn't pay us. And what particularly annoys me about this is that 4 years ago, I stood up at the AGM of the EBS Building Society, and I said, you should not be, doing business with, they sell MBNA credit cards. And this is where Michelle got her credit card.
And she didn't go looking for it. They sold it to her.
She went into an EBS office and she got the credit card in the EBS office. But I had said that the approach of MBNA is not consistent with the mutual ethos of the EBS Building Society. But they said that they had a service level agreement with MBNA and their customers would be protected.
So what did she actually do then? How did she handle this avalanche of phone calls?
Well, actually, she got one very good person. To be fair to MBNA, she did speak to her. She says herself a very good Irish person who understood her situation, went through her income and expenditure and agreed that she could afford to pay €10 a week. And, so she did get one very good person in MBNA. But even still, she wasn't able to keep up all the payments between AIB. So she went to the Money Advice and Budgeting Services.
We'll talk about that in just a sec. But she finally got an Irish person. How did she manage to get the Irish person on the line instead of an anonymous call centre person?
Oh, well, that was just, she wasn't calling them.
Eventually she got it.
Eventually somebody called her. So I don't know, maybe the process is escalated at a certain stage. If they don't get progress with somebody, they escalate them and
they get to someone who might understand and might speak, if you like, in the same vernacular as the person they're dealing with. This is a statement from MBNA. They said their aim was to make contact with the customer at the earliest opportunity and establish if they're experiencing financial stress. Their aim is to assist and find an early resolution. They said they would take any alleged breach of these guidelines seriously, including any allegation of harassment, and encourage customers to contact them directly if they have such concerns. That's what MBNA said.
Yeah, I mean, it's widely reported. I mean, I fully accept that the banks are entitled to ring people and look for money and to, and people have to pay back their debts. But ringing people more than once a week, particularly when they're talking to you. I mean, if she wasn't taking the calls, if she was red buttoning them every time, then you could probably understand them repeatedly calling. But she was taking the calls most of the time.
Anyway, as you said, she turned to MABS, the Money Advice and Budgeting Service. It's funded by the state, but it's run independently. 62 offices right around the country. And she explains how she got on.
They are a lifesaver. I don't know how I'd do it without them. I bring every bill I have down, even the small ones, the petty ones. They work out how much I have coming in, and they set out a budget which they'll put all your income into it, and they'll set a realistic goal of how much you can pay every week, and they'll prioritise bills like your rent, your ESB. They're kind of called your primary bills. You don't want to be homeless, you don't want to be out with electricity. And then you look at the ones of less importance. I mean, they're all important, but I mean, things like a TV licence. You get locked up for a TV licence, They were able to set up monthly payments that I can get a TV licence payment taken out every month. MABS was able to contact the MBNA for me, the credit union, and kind of show them that I'm trying to make an effort to pay these bills, and they've given me a bit of leeway.
So what was the solution that MABS came up with to help her control the situation? Well,
what MABS does is, as she's explained, they went through her income and expenditure. They worked out that her income was $490 a week. Her essential expenditure, excluding loan repayments, came to $450. So she only had €40 a week available. And they got on to the creditors. They got on to AIB, they got on to the credit union, and they got on to MBNA, and they reached an arrangement with them. And they said, all she can pay is €17 a month to AIB and to the credit union, and they reduced it to €6. That was €17 a week, I should say, and €6 a week then to MBNA. So that's the great thing about about MABS. MABS has a great reputation with the financial institutions, and they like to hear that somebody has gone into MABS rehabs, because that means they're actually addressing their problems. They're not running away from their debts. They're looking at their expenditure. They're looking at their income.
What happens now when the income goes down by another €100?
Well, she's going to be in further difficulty when the income goes down by another €100. They're going to have to look at her expenditure again, see if there are any other cuts. And they're, I think they're going to have to cut it further.
A couple of things here from Peter Smith. During the good times, did this lady save anything? When did people forget about being careful and not overextending? With the greatest respect and sympathy for that lady, I wonder why she ran up those loans in the first place. I'm a public servant on a middle wage, but I and others didn't run riot with credit cards or personal loans for holidays, even during the good times. That's from Sean.
They are valid arguments. Different people have different attitudes to finance.
Even the minister gave the cue here. Charlie McCreevy says, when I have it, I spend it. When I don't, I won't. So, if you get that kind of instruction or guidance from the very top.
Yeah, I think Michelle would be quite typical of a lot of people during the last years when money was plentiful and when credit was plentiful. Like, she had no problem going in, getting these loans. On the credit card in particular, I say they sold it to her. She did not wake up one day and say, gosh, I'd like to have a credit card. She would have worked with her car loan and her credit union loan.
A general question here about opting to try and pay off your credit card using an overdraft. Are the banks sympathetic to that plot? Because the interest rate might well be less.
The interest rate would well be less, and while that makes mathematical sense, in general what tends to happen is if people pay off their credit card, they end up running up the bill on the credit card again. And I used to recommend that, and I realise it actually doesn't work.
Another question. Michelle had payment protection insurance on the AIB personal loan, and yet they didn't pay up. Why not?
Yeah, she had payment protection insurance, so the idea was that if she lost her job, they would actually pay 1 year's repayments on that loan. And then what had happened was 6 months earlier, the number of hours she was working had been reduced to 16 hours. And according to the terms and conditions of the payment protection insurance, you had to be working a minimum of 17 hours.
So she missed it by 1 hour.
She missed it by 1 hour. Is that kind of thing
pointed? The financial institutions are obliged to point out all of those things to you when they sell you a product.
Yeah, payment protection insurance is something that I just don't recommend. So many cases are rejected for various different reasons. You find out if you were self-employed, like a lot of self-employed people are sold this, and then they realise, they're not supposed to be able to claim it because they shouldn't have been sold it because they were self-employed, and then they end up.
Surely the bank then has to, whoever sold them has to take a hit on that.
They give them the premium back, and Michelle did get her premium back. But she could be in a much healthier position today if they were actually paying.
That's too easy for these guys. They sell you a product which is illegal to do if it's not an appropriate product, isn't it? You're not allowed to do that under the law.
Under the Consumer Protection Code, they should check that it's suitable for you. And in some cases...
So what's the sanction for these people who gave the reassurance to people when they bought the product that a certain situation would prevail, and then it turns out it was falsely sold? Well, surely there has to be compensation for the fact that they left them high and dry, selling them a wrong product.
Yeah, in Michelle's case now, I wouldn't say it was falsely sold. It was just very bad value, and a lot of people will not qualify for this. So to be honest with you, it's just a product I'd avoid.